Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fall into Jupiter? If you think it would just be another space adventure, get ready, the reality is far worse than you can imagine. Forget about the sci-fi movies where astronauts land on distant planets and walk around calmly. On Jupiter, you won't find anything resembling a solid surface. In fact, you wouldn't even get close without facing challenges that would make even the most experienced explorers of the universe give up. The brutal gravity, the hostile environment, and the crushing forces of the largest planet in the solar system turn this fall into a true nightmare. Curious to learn more? Stay here, because what you're about to discover will surprise you. Comparison between Jupiter and other planets. When we talk about Jupiter, the first thing that comes to mind is its colossal size. We're talking about the largest planet in the solar system, one that could easily swallow all the other planets and still have space for more. It's as if Jupiter were the true guardian of the universe in our cosmic backyard. If we compare it to Earth, Jupiter has a diameter 11 times larger. And Mars, our red neighbor, wouldn't be more than a tiny speck of dust next to Jupiter. But it's not just the size that's impressive, the gas giant also boasts immense atmospheric diversity. It has winds that surpass the speed of the fiercest storms on Earth, not to mention its ammonia clouds, which make even the most extreme weather on our planet seem like a summer breeze. And what about the absence of a solid surface? While Earth and other rocky planets like Mercury or Venus provide us with firm ground beneath our feet, Jupiter flips that idea upside down. Trying to imagine a surface on Jupiter is a curious exercise. After all, where gravity on other planets keeps us grounded, on Jupiter, you'd be pulled into its gaseous depths before even getting the chance to find anything resembling solid ground. The concept of walking on Jupiter simply doesn't exist, which makes us wonder, is there something beyond the gas deep inside the planet? While Jupiter extends its immense gravity across space, the rocky planets, on the other hand, remind us just how small we are in this vast universe. Defining a surface on Jupiter. Talking about a surface on Jupiter is tricky. That's because, unlike rocky planets, Jupiter doesn't have a solid surface where one could land or walk. Instead, what we see at the top of its clouds is just the beginning of an infinite descent through layer after layer of dense gas. The colorful clouds we observe are merely a mask for the true chaos happening below. As you descend, the gas becomes denser until, theoretically, you would eventually reach a point where the gases turn into liquid due to immense pressure. But could you survive long enough to get there? The idea of a traditional surface, as we know it, simply doesn't apply here. Deep within Jupiter, it's believed there is a solid core, but that territory remains completely unexplored and full of mysteries. Science is still debating the actual composition of this core, whether it's rocky, metallic, or something beyond our current understanding. Descending through Jupiter's layers would be like plunging into an endless abyss where the very concept of ground loses its meaning. Gravity, acceleration, and falling speed. Now, imagine you started falling towards Jupiter. On Earth, we're familiar with gravity's acceleration at 9.8 meters per square second, something that feels quite natural to us. However, on Jupiter, gravity is much more intense, about 2.5 times stronger. So, if you jumped from a hypothetical point in its upper layers, your fall would be brutally fast. It would feel like accelerating from 0 to 60 miles per hour, 100 kilometers per hour, in a fraction of a second, but without any option to slow down or stop along the way. The farther you fell, the faster you'd go. With no solid surface to break the fall, your speed would keep increasing, while Jupiter's overwhelming gravity would pull you like a giant magnet. It's a descent with no return, where the only certain destination is the deep abyss of compressed gas layers. The fall itself wouldn't just accelerate but would also subject you to a hostile environment, far beyond what we can imagine in any fall on Earth, passing through Jupiter's ammonia cloud layers. At the beginning of your fall, you'd pass through Jupiter's famous ammonia clouds. These clouds are composed of frozen ammonia crystals, forming the planet's visible top layer, which gives it that beautiful visual of orange, white, and brown tones. But don't be fooled by the beauty of these colors. The journey through these layers would be anything but pleasant. Ammonia, in its gaseous form, is extremely toxic and corrosive. So, instead of admiring the view, you'd be struggling to survive in an atmosphere that literally wants to destroy you. These initial layers also hide a trap of freezing temperatures. About 50 kilometers, 31 miles, below the visible clouds, temperatures drop to a staggering minus 145 degrees Celsius, minus 229 degrees Fahrenheit. So, besides the rapid fall and the ammonia toxins, the piercing cold would add another level of danger to your adventure. It's like falling into a frozen storm, where each layer seems ready to knock you down before you even reach the next stage of this interplanetary journey: the risk of colliding with ice chunks. As you dive deeper, beyond the ammonia clouds, the next obstacle would be ice. Jupiter isn't just toxic gases, it also harbors actual ice chunks floating in its atmosphere. Imagine free-falling and suddenly encountering massive blocks of ice coming your way. It would be like navigating through a planet-scale hailstorm. These blocks may be made of frozen water and crystallized ammonia, turning the environment into a veritable minefield. The risk of colliding with these ice chunks would be constant, and you'd have to dodge or be hit by masses that could destroy you on impact. The scenario would be similar to trying to cross a snowstorm with winds of hundreds of kilometers per hour, but with ice solid enough to crush anything in its path. And even if you manage to dodge them, the ice is just one more obstacle in a long list of dangers that make falling into Jupiter a one-way trip. Overheating from gas compression. If by some miracle you survive this far, you'd begin to face another major enemy: overheating. As you descend into Jupiter's deeper layers, the gases would compress to unimaginable levels, generating unbearable heat. It's the same logic as compressed air in a bicycle pump, only on a colossal scale. The friction and compression of the gases would quickly heat your surroundings, creating an oven-like feeling around you. The deeper you fell, the denser and hotter the gas would become, until the air around you began to glow with the heat. The overheating from compression would be so intense that temperatures could exceed thousands of degrees Celsius. The experience would be like falling into a furnace, where the relentless heat would make any attempt at survival impossible. The deeper you go, the hotter it gets until the point of human endurance ceases to exist: the possibility of opening a parachute. And here comes the question: would opening a parachute work on Jupiter? It seems like a good idea at first glance. After all, a parachute could theoretically slow your fall and give you a break. But in practice, this would be another illusion. The problem is that Jupiter's atmosphere is so dense and violent that a parachute would likely be destroyed before it could stabilize your fall. Even if you managed to open it, the crushing atmospheric pressure would quickly compromise the structure of the equipment. Moreover, the parachute would be useless in an environment where gravity and winds are working against you on a scale never seen on Earth. Winds on Jupiter can reach up to 600 kilometers per hour, 373 miles per hour, so any parachute deployed would simply be torn apart by this cosmic hurricane. Not to mention that the fall wouldn't end on solid ground, but would continue until you were swallowed by even denser layers: the challenges of Jupiter's winds. If winds of 100 kilometers per hour, 62 miles per hour, already cause destruction on Earth, imagine winds of up to 600 kilometers per hour engulfing you as you fall endlessly. On Jupiter, the winds are an unstoppable force, capable of sweeping away everything in their path, whether clouds, ice, or any object that dares to cross their way. Navigating through these currents would be like trying to run against a hurricane, an impossible challenge. These winds aren't one-directional, they swirl, with variable and unpredictable speeds. If you were there, you'd have no control over your own movement, being dragged from side to side with no chance of resistance. And, of course, the deeper you descended, the more violent and unpredictable these winds would become. It's like being swallowed by a giant whirlpool in space. Jupiter offers no reprieve; its winds and storms are a continuous threat, making any kind of stabilization or trajectory control impossible. Impulse force and floating on Jupiter. Amid all this turbulence, the question arises: what about upward force? On Jupiter, the concept of floating is radically different. On Earth, gravity keeps us anchored to the ground, but on Jupiter, you'd be in a constant struggle against forces pulling you toward the center. Upward force would become almost irrelevant in the face of the relentless gravity. Even if you had something to propel you upward, the dense atmosphere and fierce winds would prevent you from staying stable for long. It would feel like trying to float at the bottom of an ocean, where the surrounding pressure pushes you down and any upward movement is quickly cancelled out by the density and crushing force around you. Jupiter isn't a place to float gently among the stars. Here, everything pulls you toward the planet's center in a journey with no return. The fight against this immense gravity would be like trying to swim against a raging river, with no chance of success, crushing pressure in the deep layers. Finally, the pressure. The deeper you go, the denser Jupiter's atmosphere becomes, until the weight of all those layers begins to exert a crushing pressure on you. On Earth, pressure increases gradually as you descend to sea level, but on Jupiter, pressure is something completely out of the ordinary. In just a few kilometers of descent, you'd face forces capable of destroying any earthly equipment. the pressure in Jupiter's depths is so intense it could crush even submarines designed to withstand the pressures of Earth's ocean floors. This immense pressure is the true villain of this endless fall. Any human, without proper protection, and even with it, would be quickly compressed into nothing. And if you could keep descending, the pressure would increase so much that the very atoms around you would begin to collapse. At this point, the descent would become a true journey into the crushing heart of Jupiter, where the concept of human resistance would simply cease to exist. Now that you know how terrifying a fall into Jupiter would be, the question remains, what else does the universe hide? What other planets have secrets that can challenge everything we think we know about space exploration? Have you ever wondered if we could survive on other worlds or even challenge such powerful forces? If you want to keep traveling through the cosmos and discover more mind-blowing facts like this, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. There's a lot out there still waiting to be explored, and I guarantee you won't want to miss anything. The next destination could be even more surprising. Which planet would you like to explore in depth?